The Grey Knights are a Space Marine chapter and the Chamber Militant for the Inquisition's Ordo Malleus. The chapter specializes in the hunting and extermination of chaos demons and are so secretive they often eliminate all of their allies after fighting has concluded. They are unique amongst the Astartes in that their gene seed is derived directly from the Emperor rather than any Primarch. Like their parent organization, much of the Grey Knights' history remains a mystery and has been purposefully removed from most Imperial archives. According to legend, the Grey Knights began as a project during the final days of the Horus Heresy. The Emperor foresaw that the heresy would likely end at such a great personal cost to himself that he would be prevented from actively defending mankind from the great threat of chaos and its demons. So he set in motion a plan to form a defense against such evil. Malcador the Sigillite, closest of the Emperor's servants, was sent to search across the Imperium for men suitable to rise to such a burden. Malcador eventually found 12 worthy champions. 4 were lords and administrators, and 8 were space marines from both loyalist and traitor legions. These included survivors of the Eisenstein incident, Nathaniel Garrow, Amendira Kendall, Lemuel Garmon, and Kyril Sinderman. During the organization's founding, others would join them, including Tylos Rubio, Mesa Varan, Janus, the Nemean, Felgerost, and Gaviel Loken. Shortly before the Siege of Terra, Malcador selected 8 of these men and gathered what would become the very first Grey Knights to his side. Their original identities were kept secret, but they are known to history as Janus, Epimetheus, Chiron, Koios, Ogun, Iapetus, Jotun, and Saturn. Once they had been gathered, the Emperor surveyed the chosen recruits and granted both his approval and consent to proceed with the project. Thus, the recruits split ways to perform separate missions. The 4 lords ventured off to help lay the framework of the formal Inquisition, whilst the Space Marines and Malcador traveled to Saturn's moon of Titan. Titan, through Malcador's mystical means, had been hidden away from the ravages of the Solar War, and when they arrived, they found a fortress monastery already fully prepared and stocked with everything necessary to create a new army of Space Marines. This included supplies of gene seed, which is suspected to have been taken from the Emperor directly, all the necessary armaments, and hundreds upon hundreds of suitable recruits from across the galaxy. Some were raw and untrained, whilst others were selected in secret from among the ranks of loyalist legions. This new army would be a chapter, a smaller, tighter brotherhood of Space Marines than a legion. It remains unclear whether this was the direct inspiration of Guilliman's Codex Astartes or not. As the traitors pressed closer to Terra, Malcador could no longer remain, and thus he appointed Janus to be the Grey Knights' leader and take the title of Supreme Grand Master. Before leaving, Malcador cast his greatest enchantment yet. He hid Titan away from Horus in the most unlikely of places, inside the warp itself. Titan was protected by Macro-Gela fields and sigillic rites, whilst the final battles of the heresy took place in real space. Malcador would never return, perishing during the Siege of Terra. When Titan eventually returned, Guilliman had split the legions, and the second founding was taking place. Whilst in the warp, time had passed at a greater rate for Titan, and so it had emerged, not with the original 8 Space Marines and their raw recruits, but with a full chapter of 1,000 fully trained battle brothers. The second founding was being directed by the Inquisition under the control of the same lords whom Malcador had selected years before. So they secretly included the Grey Knights amongst the growing list of new chapters, designating them Chapter 666, despite there being barely 400 chapters commissioned at the time. The Grey Knights, different from all the other new chapters, were embedded within the Inquisition to serve as the Chamber Militant of the Ordo Malleus to fight against all things demonic. After the heresy, Kyril Sinderman, later known as Inquisitor Lastan Nimagion Veritas, survived for 1,500 years until the end of the War of the Beast, when the Imperium was almost destroyed by an Orc invasion. After being poisoned by High Lord Draken Vangorich, head of the Assassinorum, he confided in fellow Inquisitor Venand that he was the last of the 4 Inquisitors to know of the founding of the Grey Knights. He revealed that he ordered the Grey Knights to battle the forces of chaos during the centuries following the Horus Heresy, but knowledge of them were kept to only himself, the Grey Knights, and those who were currently deceased. They were too important a force to be wasted during the War of the Beast, and the current structure of the Inquisition would prevent them from being used properly to defeat the threat of chaos. Before dying, he imparted to her a code chip that allowed her access to Titan and to meet with Supreme Grandmaster Janus. Once having navigated through the various environmental protections offered by the moon, she helped organize the splitting of the Inquisition into the Ordo Xenos and Ordo Malleus to better address both the Xenos and Chaos threat, with the Grey Knights serving as Ordo Malleus's Chamber Militant. A century later, she died after helping to ensure that Vangorich was overthrown. Since then, the Grey Knights have stayed steadfast to the Inquisition's most secretive order. Each member of the chapter undergoes a grueling and torturous selection process, and even once inducted, their harsh training regime is without equal. In battle, they move as an army of silver ghosts, surrounded by awe and equipped to the teeth to deal with the worst foes that chaos can raise to meet them. The existence of the Grey Knights is one of the Imperium's best-kept secrets, and only the Inquisition and Astartes chapter masters have been allowed to know of them. Many chapters believe the Grey Knights to be a myth, if they have even heard of them at all. Space Marines who encounter them are telepathically scoured. Local populations are purged via sterilization, and Imperial Guard regiments they fight beside are simply executed. One of the few exceptions is the Space Wolves chapter, who know of their existence due to briefly being at open war against them. To battle such enemies as demons, creatures that are not of this realm but formed of sorcery and madness, a Grey Knight must embrace the power of the warp to battle a demon with its own weapons. Each Grey Knight is an accomplished, powerful psyker whose psychic presence is anathema to creatures of the warp. They are trained to channel their psychic energies into a halo of protective wards known as the Aegis. Thusly armored, a Grey Knight's presence becomes unpalatable to demons, making him immune to corruption, able to wield forbidden black magic, harness tainted artifacts, and scour blasphemous tomes, all without risk of being overwhelmed by the cursed power of chaos. Their armor is left unpainted, leaving the silver grey of the ceramite exposed. This tradition is thought to have originated from their desire to lead lives of absolute purity. Acid etched into their left gauntlet, as well as tattooed upon the flesh beneath, is the sigil of Malcador, the Sigillite. The chapter holds a unique honor among the Adeptus Astartes, as in over 10,000 years of service, not a single one of their number has ever defected to chaos. Considering the role of the Grey Knights, potential recruits are put through even more stringent trials than other Space Marine neophytes. Unlike most Space Marine chapters, the Grey Knight recruits are often drawn directly from the Black Ships after they return to Terra by the Gatherers. They are then brought to the Chamber of Trials on Titan for testing. The most advanced bioengineering and psychosurgery available is utilized to condition the neophytes, and each recruit must pass the 666 rituals of detestation to prove that he is capable of withstanding horrors that would break even the greatest of normal Space Marines. Upon success, the recruit also has the majority of their memories and personality erased. One of the main criteria for selection is that the recruit must show great psychic potential, as the entire chapter is made up of psychers. During training, each Grey Knight recruit is designated a number to be referred by, and only upon completion of training are they given a new name. They must discard their original birth name and be given a new one. This is in part to signify being reborn, but also in part because the training a recruit undergoes is so intense that they are unlikely to remember their past and original name anyway. Furthermore, each Grey Knight name is actually a fragment of magical lore that acts in perfect opposition to the true name of a particular demon, making even a Grey Knight's name a deadly weapon. These successful neophytes are then separated into groups, and each is assigned to a Justicar who will oversee their further training. Once they reach the chamber's upper levels, the neophytes become novitiates, and upon completing the Chamber of Trials, they are accepted into the chapter. They are then inducted into the chapter's line brotherhoods. After undergoing the standard process to transform into a member of the Adeptus Astartes, the new Grey Knight is also implanted with silver purity wards under his skin, which cover his entire body. The bulk of the chapter is organized into brotherhoods, fighting formations roughly equivalent to a Space Marine company and consisting of around 100 battle brothers. Each brotherhood is overseen by a Grand Master. There are 8 known Grey Knights brotherhoods, plus the Purifier and Paladin orders. Most of the chapter's strength is spread through the Imperium, ensuring that the fighting skills of the Grey Knights can be quickly called upon by the Ordo Malleus wherever a demonic incursion may occur. These small forces are often deployed far from their fortress monastery for long periods at a time and are usually organized into small teams that have trained and fought together for their entire lives. In combat, the Grey Knights often teleport themselves directly into battle, as near to the target as possible, both to ensure they arrive without any unnecessary losses and to minimize their presence. For communication, they make use of their psychic abilities via an egregore, a psychic link that allows for faster exchange and better synchronization. Once the primary threats have been neutralized, any remaining hostile forces are left to be dealt with by additional Imperial troops, usually to whom squads of Grey Knights have been assigned as a specialist division. Of all the armies of the Imperium, the Grey Knights possess the most technologically advanced and murderous weaponry. This level of weaponry comes about from ancient pacts with the Adeptus Mechanicus and even some alien factions. The threat of the demonic is considered to outweigh even considerations of race. Most of the war gear of the Grey Knights is produced on their aligned forge world of Deimos, which hangs in orbit over Titan. The characteristic weapon of the Grey Knights is the Nemesis Force weapon. It can take the form of a halberd, sword, mace, axe, or the rarer hammer. It is a powerful force weapon, housing a psi matrix attuned to the unique psyche of its owner. Like all force weapons, the power of the weapon itself directly corresponds to the psychic talent of the wielder. As the Grey Knights are some of the greatest psykers of the Imperium, it is one of the most powerful small arms in the galaxy. All of their other equipment possesses some unique construction tailored to their fighting. Their psi-cannon bolters are impregnated with negative warp current. Their incinerator flamers feed anointed oils, and their standard armor is made of incredibly well-crafted lattices of psychoconductive filaments and amulets, anointed and inscribed with prayers and wards, ritually consecrated and psychically charged. Their kit is so potent, it often results in an effect called shrouding, where their enemies become confounded and disoriented. For heavier weaponry, the chapter makes use of both their own exosuit, the Dread Knight, and conventional dreadnoughts. Like other chapters, dreadnoughts are manned by mortally wounded Grey Knights. Unlike other chapters, however, Grey Knights do not look upon this extension of their life as an honor, as they wish to be laid to rest in the crypts of Titan, rather than living the rest of their existence in a machine. As such, they are much rarer than in conventional Astartes forces. On the topic of Titan, the fortress monastery of the Grey Knights is still based on Saturn's largest moon and is carved entirely of basalt. Within the fortress hang pennants, banners, and flags commemorating the victories and sacrifices made by the chapter in their war against the demonic. But none other than the Grey Knights would recognize the names of these campaigns. Even in the Sol system, the chapter operates in oppressive secrecy, beyond the knowledge of the Adeptus Terra and the High Lords of Terra, and the location of the fortress monastery is known only to the Ordo Malleus. Titan itself is surrounded by the rings of Saturn and multiple confidential Malleus-controlled moons, including Mimas, the prison and execution center of the Ordo Malleus, and Enceladus, home of the leaders of the Ordo Malleus and other influential Malleus inquisitors. Beneath the fortress lies a cool, damp crypt. It is here that every Grey Knight wishes to finally reside, in the hallowed halls of the glorious dead. Almost every member of the chapter will have their body recovered and brought to this crypt beneath the Emperor's temple. As a final tribute to those who have given their lives, the names of the dead are carved ceremoniously into a great basalt wall in the heart of the fortress. Among these names are some of the Imperium's greatest heroes who died in the most heroic circumstances imaginable. And like all other matters in regard to Grey Knights, they will remain almost completely unknown. The fortress monastery also contains the Librarium Daemonica, the Imperium's foremost repository of warp lore and demonology. The Librarium is a forbidding place, filled with tens of thousands of ancient tomes of diabolical lore that the Ordo Malleus has accumulated over the millennia. As mentioned, the veil of the Grey Knights has only been notably broken by an incident involving the Space Wolves. This occurred during the First War for Armageddon in 444 of M41. During the Forge World's defense from Cornity forces, an entire Grey Knight Terminator Brotherhood held back the last large-scale Chaos incursion, but incurred heavy losses. Leader of the task force, Brother Captain Aurelian, died after personally banishing the demon Primarch, Angron, back into the warp. Altogether, a bodyguard of over a dozen powerful bloodthirster demons, along with countless other minions of Khorne, were destroyed by the Grey Knights, with only about a dozen surviving the climactic battle. After the war, the Grey Knights were instrumental in purging the Imperial Guard and civilian survivors to cleanse any remaining taint of chaos, also purging a multitude of planets and outposts that had come into contact with the survivors. The Space Wolves were outraged that the Grey Knights were purging the Imperial Guardsmen they had fought with and escorted as many ships out as they could, leading to a wider campaign of extermination. When all was done, the Inquisition marched on the Wolves' homeworld, Fenris, and attempted to siege it, with immense casualties on both sides. In the end, the Grey Knights' Grand Master Joros was killed at the hands of Logan Grimnar, and the inquisitorial force withdrew. To this date, both sides harbor animosity, the Space Wolves distrusting the Inquisition, while the Space Wolves are viewed with great animosity by much of Segmentum Solar's Administratum and the Grey Knights. During the formation of the Great Rift at the beginning of M42, the Imperium was beset by an unprecedented number of demonic outbreaks. The Grey Knights and Ordo Malleus were at the forefront of the fighting in the subsequent Terran Crusade and Battle of Lion's Gate on Terra. In the aftermath, the Grey Knights worked desperately to curb demonic outbreaks in the Dark Imperium and beyond. They are currently still fighting in many of these campaigns, some of which have been forced to annihilate billions of Imperial citizens. Thank you for listening to this entry from the Warhammer 40,000 Lexicanum.